जापान के बीच और भी गहरी मित्रता और सहयोग स्थापित। आजाद हो हमारे देश।
Prime Minister Narendra Modi in Japan. The occasion is the 15th India-Japan Annual Summit with Prime Minister of Japan, Shigeru Ishiba. So what makes the India-Japan partnership so special? And why are India and Japan seen as natural partners in the Indo-Pacific region? Hello and welcome to Connecting the Dots. I'm Munmun Paracharya. Let's connect the dots. For the last 25 years, the India-Japan partnership has only grown stronger with time. Ties were elevated to global partnership in 2000, strategic and global partnership in 2006, and then special strategic and global partnership in 2014. Regular annual summits have been held between India and Japan since 2006. This journey has been marked by major milestones. Before departing for Japan, PM Modi was in India's western state of Gujarat. You may recall how Gujarat emerged as a key hub in the India-Japan partnership due to its strong ports, industrial infrastructure, and export leadership in engineering, chemicals, textiles, and more sectors. Japanese multinational company Suzuki was the first Japanese automaker to invest in India when Maruti Suzuki began a joint venture in 1982 between the Indian government and Suzuki Motor Corporation of Japan. This showed early trust and strategic long-term commitment. Today, Suzuki has an extensive automotive manufacturing capacity in Gujarat, so much so that it manufactures nearly 0.8 million vehicles out of its 2 million annual capacity in India. That means 40% of its manufacturing in India takes place in Gujarat. All Indians remember Maruti 800. It was launched in 1983. It was India's first modern, affordable, mass-produced car. Maruti 800 became the first car of many middle-class Indian families. That's how integral to our lives in India this Japanese investment became. Here's what Prime Minister Narendra Modi said on it in his speech in Gujarat.
भारत और जापान का रिश्ता केवल डिप्लोमेटिक रिलेशन से कहीं ऊपर सांस्कृतिक और भरोसे का रिश्ता है। हम एक दूसरे की प्रगति में अपनी प्रगति देखते हैं। मारुति सुजुकी के साथ हमने जो जर्नी शुरू की थी वो अब बुलेट ट्रेन की स्पीड तक पहुंच चुकी है।
Here, Prime Minister Modi inaugurated and flagged off the VITARA. It is Suzuki's first global strategic battery electric vehicle. The Made in India BEVs will be exported to more than 100 countries, including advanced markets such as Europe and Japan. With this milestone, India will now serve as Suzuki's global manufacturing hub for electric vehicles. Here's PM Modi explaining the key role Japan plays in Make in India.
एक तरह से मारुति सुजुकी जैसी कंपनियां मेक इन इंडिया की ब्रांड एम्बेसडर बन चुकी है। लगातार 4 साल से मारुति भारत की सबसे बड़ी कार एक्सपोर्टर है। अब आज से ईवी एक्सपोर्ट को भी उसी स्केल पर ले जाने की शुरुआत हो रही है। अब दुनिया के दर्जनों देशों में जो ईवी चलेगी उसमें लिखा होगा मेड इन इंडिया।
That's not all. There are several other milestone projects too that define the India-Japan partnership, like the bullet train project or the Mumbai-Ahmedabad high-speed rail. It is seen as a landmark in the India-Japan partnership. India's first high-speed rail corridor of over 500 kilometers is being built with financial and technical assistance from Japan. It is a flagship example of the partnership's technological depth as it heavily relies on Japan's advanced Shinkansen technology. Japan is supplying the newest E10 Shinkansen trains to India. They are debuting simultaneously in both countries. This project brings with it knowledge transfer, skill development, and builds local manufacturing capabilities in India. Delhi Metro is another example. Japan provided crucial financial and technical support to the construction and expansion of the Delhi Metro, making it a pioneering project for urban mass transport in India. Then comes the Mumbai Trans-Harbour Link or Atal Setu. With almost $2 billion of Japanese financial assistance, this sea bridge in Mumbai is one of India's largest infrastructure ventures. It was built using advanced Japanese technology. Delhi-Mumbai Industrial Corridor or DMIC. This multi-billion-dollar Japan-backed corridor is being constructed to boost industrial infrastructure across Western India. Besides these mega infrastructure projects, there is an India-Japan digital partnership too. Established in 2018, this has fostered collaborations in information technology, digital transformation, and Industry 4.0. There is also a clean energy partnership. That includes multiple yen loan projects worth over 300 billion Japanese yen. The idea is to boost India's green energy and sustainable initiatives. What's more, large-scale Japanese overseas development assistance is funding the improvement of road infrastructure in India's northeast region. In the strategic and defense domain, India and Japan are collaborating on defense co-production through groundbreaking high-technology military partnerships like co-development of the Unified Complex Radio Antenna or Unicorn mast for the Indian Navy. Now, this project represents the first ever co-production of defense equipment between the two nations. But now such collaborations are only set to grow. In the space sector, India and Japan are collaborating on the LUPEX or Lunar Polar Exploration Mission. It is also known as Chandrayaan-5. It is a joint lunar mission aimed at exploring the moon's South Pole region to study the presence of water and water ice on the surface and subsurface. This joint mission follows India's Chandrayaan-3 or successful soft landing and anticipates Chandrayaan-4, which will involve lunar sample return. Chandrayaan-5 could become the foundation of India's long-term presence on the moon. If you look at the big picture going ahead, Japan has announced a plan to invest 10 trillion Japanese yen, that's about $68 billion in India, over the next decade. This pledge is among the most ambitious Tokyo has ever made to New Delhi. It is designed to boost the India-Japan partnership. It signals Japan's long-term stake in India's growth story at a time when many global investors remain cautious about China. Most importantly, there is a high degree of strategic trust between India and Japan. Remember, the then Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, during his visit to India in 2007, delivered the famous "The Confluence of Two Seas" speech to the Indian Parliament. That became the basis of the concept of the Indo-Pacific. Japan's vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific aligns closely with India's Act East policy and Indo-Pacific initiatives. This counters unilateral assertions and upholds regional stability, especially in the face of China's assertiveness in the region. This has also led to greater cooperation on infrastructure, maritime security, connectivity, and disaster resilience efforts across Asia and Africa. India and Japan frequently coordinate in security dialogues such as the Quad with the United States and Australia and conduct regular ministerial 2+2 dialogues and joint military exercises like Dharma Guardian and Malabar, reflecting a robust defense partnership. India and Japan are both strong believers of reformed multilateralism and representation of the voice of the Global South in institutions of global governance such as the United Nations Security Council. India and Japan have been part of the G4 group since its creation in 2004. The G4 group comprises Brazil, Germany, India and Japan, who support each other's bids for permanent seats on the United Nations Security Council and have been working together on UNSC reform since then. Lastly, PM Modi's visit to Japan and then to China comes at a time of flux in global geopolitics. While there is a tentative easing of tensions between India and China after years of strain, there is also growing uncertainty about New Delhi's ties with Washington. So PM Modi's engagement in Tokyo carries weight well beyond the bilateral. Since his return to office, Trump's policies have shaken America's long-standing allies to the core. Japan, South Korea and Taiwan now face high tariffs, harsh demands for greater defense spending, and Trump's pressures on transferring wealth and technology to the United States. While still dependent on US protection, these allies are looking to explore greater self-reliance and diversification. After the focus in recent years on working with the US in Asia, India would want to further enhance its independent role in Asia, creating space for more strategic cooperation with Japan and Northeast Asia as a whole more broadly. All in all, the India-Japan partnership is exceptional due to its deep roots, strategic foresight, mutual respect, and global vision, making it a cornerstone for peace, stability, and prosperity in Asia and beyond. Time for a breather on connecting the dots. Iran could soon face a total return of United Nations sanctions, crippling its economy and further isolating it on the world stage. But why now? What's triggered this crisis, and what could it mean for nuclear diplomacy and the stability of the entire region? We explore that next. Iran may soon face a full reimposition of United Nations sanctions unless it returns to nuclear talks. So why does this matter? What does the West want? And what's at stake for Iran and the world? Let's break it down. For years, Iran has insisted that its nuclear program is peaceful, aimed at energy production and medical use, not weapons. Tehran argues it has a right under the Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty to enrich uranium for civilian needs. But the outside world does not see it that way. Western governments say the levels of uranium enrichment, coupled with Iran's lack of cooperation with International Atomic Energy Agency or IAEA inspectors, look like steps toward developing a nuclear weapon. So what would snapback look like in practice? If triggered, a snapback would reinstate the full range of UN sanctions. That means an arms embargo, missile restrictions, travel bans, asset freezes, and a ban on nuclear-related trade and technology. Economically, this would be devastating. Iran's oil exports, banking, shipping, and infrastructure projects would be hit hard. And remember, Iran's economy is already fragile. Inflation is above 40%. The currency is one of the weakest in the world, and poverty is widespread. Oil exports have collapsed since the US sanctions returned. Some $100 billion in Iranian assets abroad remain frozen. These are the funds Iran desperately wants access to. Sanctions would also worsen shortages of food, medicine, and essential imports, hitting ordinary Iranians hardest. The pressure now is intense. Unless Iran reopens negotiations and allows inspectors back in, the E3, that is Britain, France and Germany, are ready to trigger the UN's snapback mechanism. What does that mean? This means all the sanctions lifted under the 2015 Iran nuclear deal would automatically return without a new UN vote, and most importantly, without Russia or China being able to veto. The timing is crucial. The snapback mechanism itself expires on October 18, 2025. So the Europeans are racing to act in September, while South Korea holds the rotating Security Council presidency. If they wait until October, Russia could try to stall the process. And this pressure comes on the heels of a dramatic escalation earlier this year. Tensions spiked in June this year when Israel and the United States launched coordinated strikes on Iran's nuclear facilities. Over 12 days of conflict, enrichment plants at Natanz, Fordo and Isfahan were hit. Reports say bunker buster bombs were used, crippling parts of Iran's enrichment infrastructure. Several of Iran's top nuclear scientists were also killed. In response, Iran halted cooperation with the IAEA, the international watchdog, arguing it could not guarantee safety for inspectors. Since then, The world has little idea about the status of Iran's stockpile, which was believed to include 400 kilograms of highly enriched uranium. However, UN nuclear inspectors returned to Iran earlier this week for the first time since it suspended cooperation with them in the wake of Israel's attacks on its nuclear sites. Let's listen in to what IAEA Chief Rafael Grossi said in his interview with Fox News Channel.
Now the first team of IAEA inspectors is back in Iran, and we are about to restart. Of course, when it comes to Iran, as you know, there are many facilities. Some were attacked, some were not. So we are discussing what kind of modalities, practical modalities, can be implemented in order to facilitate the restart of our work there. We've seen many successes in the past few weeks where, in spite of very difficult conditions, it has been possible to broker deals, to bring people together. This is a special case because, of course, Israel is also involved. There is a matter where the United States took action. So the reconstruction of this dialogue, conversation, is more difficult, but it's not impossible. It's not at all impossible. Of course, certain conditions must be met, and our work, the work of the inspectors, is indispensable because without us being there checking what is going on, you cannot enter any serious negotiation without knowing what is really happening in countries, especially if you want to avoid a repetition of what we saw in June.
The war hardened Iran's leadership. Hardliners gained ground, insisting that negotiations are pointless if their nuclear facilities can be bombed at will. Diplomacy has become even more fragile since. So what exactly do the Europeans want? First, they argue Iran has broken its commitments by enriching uranium up to 60%, which is, they say, alarmingly close to weapons grade, and then by cutting off cooperation with international inspectors. Second, Europe says they want to protect the credibility of global non-proliferation rules. If Iran's enrichment is left unchecked, other countries may follow. Third, geopolitics. With the October deadline looming, Europe wants to act before Russia can delay proceedings. Even though snapback technically avoids vetoes, procedural stalling remains a risk. But Iran sees things differently. Iranian officials say Tehran's nuclear program is still peaceful and that higher enrichment levels are a defensive response to US hostility. Iran says the US pulled out of the 2015 deal first in 2018, and Europe failed to deliver promised economic benefits. So Iran argues Europe has no moral or legal right to punish it now. Now, if sanctions return, Iran has warned of consequences, possibly quitting the Non-Proliferation Treaty altogether, ending cooperation with the IAEA, and even taking more aggressive steps in the region. Supreme Leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei has rejected direct talks with Washington, saying Iran will never bow. But Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has hinted at possible indirect talks if guarantees are given against future military strikes.
At this stage, our focus is on preventing actions or incidents that may be costly for the country. We are negotiating with all our might in this regard.
So, is there a way out? There is still a narrow diplomatic window. If snapback is triggered, there is a 30-day period in which the Security Council could suspend it, but that would require a new resolution. The E3 or the US would almost certainly veto any such move. Meanwhile, Russia and China are proposing a 6-month extension to delay snapback and allow more time for diplomacy. But Europe sees this as a stalling tactic and not as a solution. The calendar is important here too. The United Nations General Assembly meets in late September, bringing leaders together. And that could be the last chance for serious diplomacy before sanctions hit. So the stakes are incredibly high. Iran's economy, the credibility of the UN system, and the risk of a wider West Asia conflict. The world is watching to see whether this crisis ends in diplomacy or triggers another escalation. Before we wrap up, here's something a little lighter to end on. In Western Indonesia, the centuries-old Pacu Jalur boat race has made a big splash this year, thanks to an 11-year-old boy whose viral dance moves have brought global attention and record crowds to this traditional river festival. Thanks for watching. We leave you with these joyful scenes.